So I'm standing here, feeling slightly nervous, but I know I'm not alone. I'm standing shoulder to shoulder with some really smart people, able, experienced people. Here, 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 here. and sometimes, actually, I'm standing on their shoulders. If the truth be known. Sorry, there's no economy and no society without a livable environment. That's environment with a big E. That means everything. And the reality is that only the Green Party has the understanding, the vision, and the plan to act on this incontestable fact. So, really, the choice is, for the people of Stroud, between business as usual. Well, there are three parties, and they're kind of indistinguishable, so I won't even list them in reality. But what we do know is that I vote for business as usual, and you'll get the same as usual. Whoever is in Downing Street, whoever's there. The other alternative, is an old, and to my mind, thoroughly discredited business, but with a new face. A slightly disturbing, grinning face, bent on blaming foreigners for literally everything. Or an honest and authentic voice for real change for the common good. In Parliament, the Green Party. So over the next 6 weeks or so, I and my colleagues in the district and in the National Party will be highlighting our manifesto for the UK and for the Stroud district. My values, well, what they won't allow me to do is stand by and watch anymore. They won't allow me to stand by and watch how life is becoming so intolerable day by day for so many of our members of our society. And I can't stand by and watch our country being hijacked by fundamentalists, market fundamentalists. I can't stand by and watch as the coalition government continue to transfer power from those who have very little to those who already have a lot and are accumulating and amassing more by the day. I can't stand by while great swathes of our countryside are opened up to fracking. And I can't stand by while the greed and recklessness of the bankers continues to be protected.
People have really realised that first past the post is a disastrous electoral system. But we're stuck with it for 2015. But people are actually recognising that they've been trained to vote for the person or party they dislike the second most, to stop the ones they really hate getting in. But that's actually helped to give us the kind of politics we've got now. It's the reason why the three largest parties are almost indistinguishable, because they're all chasing the swing voters in the swing seats. And everything's focus grouped to death to see what will appeal to those few 100,000 people at most. And so, if everyone just says, no, I'm going to vote for what I believe in, the person I like, the person I trust, the party whose policies I back, we can actually create a revolution simply by doing that. And I'll admit to some self-interest in this because there is you might know the website called Vote for Policies, based on the 2010 general election manifestos. And last I saw, we're winning with about 25%. I'll take that.
You equated immigration with racism, and that's not the same. Or immigration controls with racism, it's not the same thing. You're from Australia, I believe, Natalie, originally, and I understand Australia, New Zealand, and similar countries have restrictions based upon occupations that people can bring to the country and so on. It doesn't matter if you're Chinese or black or Asian or whatever. It's wrong to equate with that.
I take your point, and I suppose I won't apologise for the fact that my perspective is coloured by the fact that my family is mixed race and of mixed descent. My children are, and I am. And what I have a sense of is the enormous wealth and ingenuity and creativity and genius. And actually, I can't imagine the UK without immigrants and a constant flow of them. Underlying it, I'm concerned to address root causes, and I think the really root cause is speed of change. It's the speed of change that affects people. And that speed of change is not driven by the EU, it's not driven by open doors, it's actually driven by the dynamics of international neoliberal economics, market fundamentalism, the enormous shifts of capital around the world which drag in low-paid workers. That's what's driving immigration. People have stable, sustainable communities. Where they're growing up, there wouldn't be this dynamic. You know, there just wouldn't be, in my view. That's my comments on that. But thanks for raising the question.
I know.
What you said about immigration, I think one of the things is we do have to acknowledge that there's really deep fears, concern, panic, total sense of fear in lots of communities, and particularly communities that have been, the communities are often seen as having been left behind. But actually, most people, when you talk to them and they say they're concerned about immigration, and you say, what are you concerned about? And there's usually three main answers. One of which is low wages, one of which is housing is really expensive and my kids can't get a council house near me, the whole housing problem, and the third one of which is schools and hospitals being crowded. Now, first of all, immigrants do not cause low wages. No one arrives at the White Cliffs of Dover and says, I really want to work for less than a minimum wage and have a really miserable time and be thoroughly exploited. Low wages are caused by the fact that we have inadequate enforcement of the minimum wage, and the obvious area of this is to think of home carers who are paid less than the legal minimum wage. They're only paid for a 15-minute appointment there and a half-hour appointment there and not paid for the travelling time in between. And that's actually a widespread abuse of minimum wage legislation, and the fact that the minimum wage is inadequate anyway. So you set a decent minimum wage and enforce it, and immigrants can't cause low wages, because there are no low wages. In terms of housing, I've already talked a lot about the issues of regional that, and the fact, we've sold off our council housing. That's why people who say to you, my children can't get a council house down the road. No, it's now owned by a private landlord who probably owns 20 flats in the same block and is collecting an absolute mint in housing benefit. So that's what's causing the housing problems. And in terms of schools and hospitals, well, schools, we have a huge, particularly since Michael Gove, a huge problem with lack of planning. Local councils can no longer even plan for baby booms they can see coming. And NHS and schools, there's just a lack of investment, a lack of putting the money that needs to be in there. So none of those things are actually caused by immigration. But it's really important we reach out to those communities, those people, and say, hey, this is what the problem is. And scapegoating immigrants is absolutely not the answer. And this has, the scapegoating of immigrants has real world human consequences. I was up in Great Yarmouth talking to a group, a charity that helps Eastern European people who are workers here when they have problems with job seekers allowance, problems with benefits, problems in applying for jobs. And they said to me that our clients report increasingly that we're suffering abuse, suffering assaults in the community. And we don't report them to the police because that's just what English people are like. And that's what the rhetoric about immigration is doing, and we absolutely have to stand up to it and say, no, that is not acceptable. That is not British values. The Royal College of Midwives, for the first time in their 133-year history, went out on strike. We are actually leaving our public sector workers, our essential, skilled, trained people, unable to actually meet their basic needs to meet their bills. They've seen cuts in pay in real terms of 15 to 20%. And that simply cannot continue and has to be reversed. And we supported all of those strikes. And I'll be marching tomorrow in London. I'll also be going, and this is an interesting, there's going to be a new Occupy starting in London tomorrow. We'll see what happens with that. But if you happen to be going to the TUC march, go to Parliament Square afterwards, and we'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen, but so I'd urge everyone who can to go to the TUC march. We need strong unions that are actually an essential part of a balanced society. And the pressing down of the unions has been one of the things that has helped companies run away without decent pay, without decent conditions. And just while we're on the subject of this, I'd also urge everyone who can to join the march on November 29, when our Young Greens are one of the organisers of a march for free tuition. So let's put that demand back on the table and say that education is a public good, and it's good for all of us, for everyone to get everything from an NVQ to a PhD. We're all better off for every qualification everyone gets, and we should pay for that from progressive taxation, not leave a huge burden of debt sitting on our young people's shoulders.
I think about bloody time, really. About bloody time that people are actually saying no, and standing and saying no. Enough is enough. Because the austerity and the cuts that follow from it are essentially a sleight of hand, as far as I'm concerned. They're a marvellous and largely successful misdirection. Disguising fraud and tax evasion and tax avoidance on a monumental scale. A shift in wealth, a theft of wealth almost, from nation states and the poor to corporations. That's what's really happening before our eyes. And I think what I've realised, what I believe is that the so-called crisis, the deficit, it's a kind of a phony crisis, and it really was the excuse that the neoliberal economists were waiting for. They've been sitting waiting for this for years, basically. And it's just perfect for them. It's a perfect storm for them to launch their agenda, to launch their market fundamentalism gone mad. So, thank God. About time, is what I'm saying.